welcome to this pre-conference webinar. Today we have a super interesting talk that is extremely relevant for some changes that are happening in the European Union. But before jumping to that part of the webinar, let me share with you a few things about giving you context and why we're doing these webinars. So maybe if you're not aware of it, we're doing a conference in Valencia at the end of March, so in a bit more than 1 month. It will be between the 26th and the 28th of March. Is the Selenium and Appium conference that are happening together in Valencia last week of March. We have a great agenda. We have a bunch of topics that are super interesting. Previous conferences, Selenium and Appium conferences, were focused on mostly testing and only automation around web and mobile. But in this edition, we have more topics that are making the conference way more interesting. Like we're obviously having AI as one of the main topics, but also we are putting more things like video game automation, video game testing. Observability is a big topic that is having a few talks there. We're having things around designing test infrastructure and different things about the WebDriver ecosystem and the WebDriver automation industry. So it's very interesting. We're getting like really good comments from different people commenting that we have a great set of speakers, and we have them thanks to this group of organizers and review committees. So thanks to them, we're having this really good set of speakers and talks. So if you want to, head to seleniumconf.com/agenda, and you will see all the talks that have been selected for this conference. But obviously, we have these talks because we have a huge amount of submissions. We had over 200 submissions, and unfortunately, we couldn't select every single talk that had a good abstract, a good title, a good topic, and that's why we're doing these pre-conference webinars. We are giving space to many of the folks who send us good proposals, but unfortunately, we didn't have more space in the conference to give them a slot and present their talk. So before showing you the presentation we have today, if you're interested in coming to the conference, you can head to seleniumconf.com/register, and you can use the 10% discount code PRECONFWEBINAR to get a discounted ticket if you want to join us at the end of March in Valencia. Today, we have one of the presentations that was raising more interest to me. I saw a shorter version of this presentation a couple of months ago, and that's why I was so interested, because it's not common to see a presentation where two different roles, like a developer and a tester, are sharing their perspective on accessibility. Accessibility is a huge topic in the European Union on this 2025, and that's why we have Emil and Katy here with us. So thank you for being with us, Emil, and let me unmute that. Here, your microphone is now unmuted. So welcome, thank you for being here, and yeah, I hope that you have a good time sharing with us your presentation. But first of all, obviously, thank you for being here, for sharing time with us, and looking forward to your presentation.
For your invite.
Thank you.
I'm gonna remove my slides, and I'm gonna put yours. So here you go, and here the stage is yours. Take your time, feel at home. For everyone who is watching this presentation, please write your questions in the comments, either if you're in YouTube Live or in LinkedIn Live. Then write your comments there, and we're gonna get to them at the end of the presentation. Thank you. Have a good time, and thank you for being here.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending the pre-series of Selenium conference. As Diego said, if you have any questions, you can leave a comment and we'll answer after we finish the presentation.
As you saw, our topic is accessibility topic, the online shopping that last year's is a nightmare for people with disabilities. So now let's start from where we are. We are located in Bulgaria, and it is in southern Europe, and it's known for its rich history, culture, and natural landscapes. From the towering peaks of Rio and Pirin to the serene shores of the Black Sea. In the picture, you're seeing also two pictures from our capital, Sofia, and the one in the upper left corner is our view from the office building. Now, let's hear about what we are doing.
We're working for Merco. Merco Bulgaria has been launched by two e-commerce companies. It has been a merge between Isobar Commerce and Wiferia. The new brand is among the largest e-commerce companies in Bulgaria, having globally recognized clients in its portfolio. In Bulgaria, the team specializes in delivering, managing, and innovating multi-channel commerce platforms for really major international brands, such as Asda, Walt Disney, Quarins, Adidas, and many others. As the world of commerce continues to change, we give each brand's customer a consistent and meaningful experience across every channel and every time. Here, we have a really strong team, which consists of more than 250 people.
Emil, that is next to me, he has over 17 years of experience in web and mobile development. His work for various retailers has provided him with a broad range of experience in diverse technologies and tech stacks.
And here is Kati. She's a QA engineer with over 3 years of experience in web and mobile testing. She's mainly specializing in ensuring high quality deliverables for major clients. And you have already understood from our topic that we are quite passionate about accessibility. So let's move on.
Now, let's start with a simple question. I know, guys, that you cannot ask or type me anything. That's why I will answer from your side. I am sure that the answer will be correct. So, who wants to be successful? I'm sure that everyone who's listening now. But what is success when we are talking about software? How we can measure that success? Personally, I can think of two things that can make a software successful. From one side, it will be equal to the money, the profit that our software makes. And from other side, I will put the social impact of the software because it's very important. So we have the formula for the successful software. Now, let us give you an example on a fun successful one. For that, we are going to listen a recording. Since the audience won't be able to respond right away, I will try to respond to Emil's questions.
List with one item Royal Christmas tree 180 centimeters link. Decrement quantity button. Disabled. Input read-only field. Selected 1. Increment quantity button. Check out now button.
So this was the audio, and now I have prepared 3 questions. The first one is, did you understand what the customer is trying to buy?
Yeah, a Christmas tree.
Exactly, that's correct. But do you know how many Christmas trees the customer wanted to purchase?
I have no idea. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, that's the lack of accessibility. So to give you the answer, the customer wanted to buy 2 Christmas trees. He was on the basket page and he had only 1 Christmas tree added to his basket. He focused on the increase quantity button and he pressed with the keyboard and he pressed enter once or space once. So he wanted to have 2 Christmas trees added. However, nothing has been announced to him. He thought there is a bug. So because of that, he pressed the increase quantity button a couple of more times. So he ended up of adding 10 Christmas trees into his basket rather than the wished from him 2. And here comes the third question. Do you know how much he's going to pay for that?
Should I know that? Was it in the recording?
No one have heard it for sure. So the price has changed from 100 euros for a Christmas tree to 1,000 euros for 10 Christmas trees if he had added 10. So how did you feel during this exercise without not knowing what you're going to buy? For sure, not good. So with this example, I hope you understand why online shopping is a nightmare for people with disabilities.
I'm pretty sure you all know who that person is. That is Tim Berners-Lee, the director and inventor of the World Wide Web. But the important thing here is what he's saying, that an essential part of web is to be accessible to all people regarding their disability. So now let's talk what value accessibility brings.
Talking about value, there are quite a lot of things to mention here, but we have tried to summarize. The first one is, do you know that around 20% of the world population consists of people with disabilities? It's a really wide range of disabilities. They include visual impairments, low vision, deafness, hearing difficulties. There are also motor and cognitive disabilities as well. On top of that, there are situational disabilities, for example, a broken arm. The second topic here is the money. This group of people with disabilities, along with their families and friends, has a spending power of $13 trillion annually. This info is gathered by an organization that is called the Valuable 500. It consists of really big companies such as Adobe, Coca-Cola, Hewlett-Packard, and Lidl. And last but not least, since this year, since 2025, people with disabilities would be eligible to sue your company or the retailer you're working for because of the European Accessibility Act 2025.
So there are 4 principles on which web accessibility relies on. The first one is perceivable. Users should be able to perceive digital information without any barriers.
The second one is operable. A website should be easy to operate and interact with. And also, the navigation must be simple.
The third one is understandable. Websites should be built around clear language and predictable navigation and operations.
And the last one is robust. The content must be reliable across multiple technologies and digital platforms and needs to be adaptable to various accessibility tools. And those 4 principles are applied via 3 different levels of compliance.
Those levels of compliance can be found in WCAG, which is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. We have level A that contains basic success criteria for removing accessibility barriers for a wide range of users. We have level AA that extends level A and removes additional barriers and establishes a level of accessibility that works for most of assistive technologies, such as the screen readers. And this is the desirable level for all of the websites. And as you have already heard, it will be a must from this year. I believe it was June, month.
It was June, yeah.
And we have level AAA that is good to have, but is the hardest level to be accomplished, which in some cases it's impossible to be achieved. And this level extends the previous 2. So you cannot have level AAA without having level A and level AA. And we're able to comply with any of these levels thanks to AREA.
Katy mentioned AREA. What is AREA? Here is a brief example of what it does. First of all, AREA stands for Accessible Rich Internet Applications. the example here will try to answer what area does. On the left side, you see a DOM HTML markup of a web page that in the before and after area section. In the upper right corner, you see the blue dots. The blue dots is what the HTML markup does by itself. So it makes connections based on nesting different elements within each other. But the interesting part comes in the bottom right image. As you can see, there are green dots there. These are the additional connections that area does. It makes additional relations between the HTML elements, and this is helping the assistive technologies and especially the screen readers to better orientate within the web page. So in a nutshell, this is what area does, making additional connections between the HTML elements. And now let's see some examples of wishes we have seen in our past.
How hard it can be to add accessibility on an already developed single-page application website. Well, trust me, it was a complete nightmare, such a disaster. But we've succeeded, and the main thing that we've learned is to think about accessibility on time. So if you're building your software right now, please incorporate accessibility so that it can be accessible to everyone. During the session, we will see examples with a customer of ours that is with us from maybe 16 years, which means 16 years of development of a single-page application website, and unfortunately, most of them without applying accessibility. We've faced a lot of problems, but you will hear about our most essential ones, and you will see them in the next slides. Our first and major issue was that our stories were designed for whole templates, like the delivery, the checkout, and the basket. At that time, as you've already heard, we were still green in dealing with accessibility. And for that, the development of our first story took us 2 months of suffering and dealing with different broken components around the website. You wonder why that happened? Well, it was because we have a React component-based site. I know, you say, yeah, and that is the best. You can use one component in many different places. And you will be right, but we've applied accessibility on the title dropdown that you're looking at, and we've succeeded to break the filters dropdown on product details page. But, however, we've come with the solution, and we realize that we've made a huge mistake from the beginning in dealing with accessibility. Our solution was to talk with the client and rewrite the stories so we can apply accessibility by components, not by templates, which in other words, it will be a ton of work for the QAs, but in that way, we can guarantee that we have an accessible website.
Let's move on to the next issue. For this problem, imagine that you're using a screen reader and you're not looking at the screen at all. So whatever you see on this presentation is not what you're looking at in this example. So you browse through a product listing page of a shopping website. There are many tiles in there, and you hear a baby dress that sounds interesting to you. You want to browse it for more details, so you select the product tile via the keyboard or the mouse, can be the same. What happens is that you land on the product details page. That's quite obvious, right? Here on the presentation, we see that we are on the product details page, but do not forget that you're not looking at the screen. So how do you know that you are already on the product detail page? Only because you can see it. However, people who are using a screen reader are not aware of that change. Why is that? It is because in a single page application website, the page changes are not automatically announced. So we need to handle that programmatically. We have a couple of solutions here. We have outlined just one, but the rule of thumb is that you must announce all of the changes that are happening on the web page or on the website to the users when the change happens. This can be done with various techniques like area-wide regions, HTML role attributes, and many others actually. In this example, we introduced a visually hidden element that contains area-wide attributes. So whenever there is a change in the content of this element, it would be automatically announced to the user by the screen reader. This way, we can manipulate the DOM, the document object model, inside with JavaScript and announce, I don't know, for example, the page title of the page. And again, the rule of thumb is announce all of the changes. And while we're talking about visually hidden elements, let's talk about another problem.
You're looking at custom elements that should be accessible by the user with the arrows of the keyboard, that is, by the accessibility rules. Those elements on one side should match the client requirements, and another side should match the style guide. Unfortunately, it's impossible to fully control the appearance of native elements. So, our solution was to implement the native elements, such as select and input radio button, that are controlled by the custom elements. In other words, what we will have? We will have custom components that we want, but they will behave as native ones. That will be the good part for the accessibility. Let's see another issue.
For this problem, again, imagine that you're browsing through the website using keyboard. For example, you have a situational disability, for example, a broken arm, so there is no mouse for you. We're going to talk about the focus and why the focus matters. The journey is the following. You're again browsing through a product listing page and you select a tile. As you can see, the add button has an overlay, not an overlay, but an outline, sorry. Yeah. And this means that this add button is selected right now. So the customer presses enter or space. What happens next is that a model window is being displayed. In other words, you're not redirected to the product details page, but you see a model window, a quick buy model window on the product listing page on top of it. Unfortunately for the customer, the size he has been looking for is not available. It's out of stock. So what he does, he decides to close this model window. So he focuses on the close button of the model window and he selects it. What happens is that this particular tile that has been the trigger for the model window right now doesn't have the outline. The focus is being lost. And why is that? It is because in a single page application website, the model windows are usually dynamically injected into the document object model. And if the focus is within this element, if this element is being removed or closed, this would mean that the focus is lost. And the browser would fall back, so he doesn't know what to focus. The browser doesn't know what to focus. The focus has been trapped in an element that has been removed from the DOM. It's not there anymore. So he falls back while selecting the body element. And that's an issue because in that example, the customer would need to start tabbing through the entire page from the beginning. So talking about solution, there are plenty of solutions here, but for sure you need to use JavaScript in order to manipulate the focus. Here we are outlining two different approaches. The first one is you can store the tile the user has selected as a variable, and once the customer closes the model window, you can automatically, programmatically select the add button within the tile. Another approach is a more of generic one. You can store the document active element into a variable. to give you an idea, the document active element is the currently focused element. So you can store it in a variable. And afterward, if the model window is closed, in other words, removed in a single page application website, removed from the DOM, this would help you to focus the last element that has been focused. Let's move on.
Well, as you can see, we have pretty large navigation, obviously, with many focusable elements. And that was an issue, because if the customer wants to go to the main content of the page, they have to pass through all of those links. And that will be a huge waste of time, because they have to do it every single time when they want to go to the main content of the page. And for that, we've came with the solution to put a skip to main content button at the beginning of the header. Easy, right? And it is very helpful. And the thing is that you can use the same approach in various places, like, for example, the carousels. We have the same button as the skip to main content button that is called checkout. And it's related with real life to the basket. So if you are on the skip to checkout now button, when you're navigating with the keyboard, it won't appear with the mouse. But if you're on that button, you will hear the amount that you have on the basket. And if you press that button, you will go directly on the checkout, and you won't have to pass through all of the website so you can check out. Here comes the last of our essential problems.
Applying accessibility would mean that you'll be facing one and the same issue across multiple elements. As an example, we can take the focusable or interactable elements. So everything that the customer can interact with needs to have a visual focused state. This best serves the needs of people who are using only the keyboard, for example, as we spoke before, a situational disability, let's say. So the visual focus would look like that. As you can see, there is an outline on these elements. So here we're talking about input field. We have 2 tiles and two more buttons. All of these interactable and focusable elements need to have a visual focus. But do not be afraid. Our suggestion here is, while you're having global issues, do not be afraid to apply global solutions. In our case, we implemented a single CSS declaration with a selector that covers all of the focusable elements. So we can put an outline once a focusable element is being focused by the customer. So it's easy. Of course, this is not the complete solution. You can amend it by your needs, but in other words, it's just a global solution to a global problem. And just a disclaimer here, and it's really important. Keep in mind that all of the focusable elements need to be interactable. And now let's see what tools do we use in our day-to-day practice in order to validate how a website, whether the website is accessible or not.
In the next section of our presentation, you will see some of the instruments that help us on daily basis to deal with accessibility. Let's start with the first one. The first one is the screen reader. A screen reader is an assistive technology primarily used by people with vision impairments. It converts text, buttons, images, and other screen.
Sorry, it's my fault. Sorry, technical issue.
Another screen into speech and braille. But that will happen, of course, if we have the correct attributes in the DOM. So let's take a look at the picture. We have the NVDA and the JAWS that are the two primary screen readers for desktop with Windows. We have the VoiceOver that is used in the gray color, that is used for Mac and for iOS operation systems, since it's iPhone as well. And it's a built-in software, and the others are not. And we have the Android device reader that is called TalkBack. Now, let's take a look at what the developers can use so that they can make their life easier.
You saw this slide earlier. Apologies for that. But you can add accessibility linters to your editor or IDE you're using. If you're wondering what the linters are, this is a type of a static code analysis tool which could detect potential errors, bugs, and some inconsistencies in terms of applying accessibility. So they can catch generic WCAG issues while you're writing the code. It's quite popular to use such. There are linters for many things, but we highly recommend using linters for accessibility as well. On top of that, the linters can be incorporated as part of the building process, so they can automatically validate the code once it's being built. Another tool that we're using is the color contrast ratio checker.
Have you ever wondered why Facebook is in white and blue? Well, I haven't, but while I was doing the presentation, I have learned that one. Well, it's because Mark Zuckerberg is color blinded for colors like red and green. So if we want our software to be accessible for people with that kind of disability, we should make sure that our website has a color contrast ratio equals to 4.5 to 1. There are different color contrast checkers. We have the automated one included in automation tools as X, but usually they don't catch every time properly the color ratio. So if we have any doubts, it's better to be done manually. And for that, we have very popular apps. For Windows, we have TPG-I and the color contrast analyzer. Also, we have a lot of home extensions that we can use. And for the iOS operation system, I have personally used Contrast because it's very easy and fun to use too. And let's jump to the next tool.
Next tool, which we highly recommend, is X DevTools. You can use it as a Chrome extension, for example, and it has two options, a free one and a paid one. While the linters are checking the input code, Access checks the output, meaning that it can detect accessibility errors that is caused by nesting different elements or having them as siblings. So you can use both. You can use the linters and you can use the Access DevTools. We highly recommend to use at least the free version. The paid one gives you just more opportunities, and it's more widely checking the WCAG standards. And very similar to what Access DevTools does is the last tool that we're going to talk about.
Wave. Wave is a free web accessibility evaluation tool that identifies ways to make our page more accessible. You can use it directly on your browser as a Google Chrome extension. You can open any page, then turn Wave on, and Wave will display a version of your page with the highlights of all of the information that you need to make your page more accessible. On the picture that you're looking at, I have already opened the Details tab in the upper corner. And in the Details tab, you can see very detailed explanation of all of the errors, accessibility errors, that you're having on your web page. And after all of those tools, let's continue with the automation. Let's speak about that. What we can do with Selenium in order to ensure that our page is accessible and, most importantly, remains accessible with time. So we have the Axe automation, and those are the two libraries we can use based on our needs. Depends on what language we use. If you want to use JavaScript, you can get Axe Core directly, and for Java, you can download the Axe Core Maven library. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into our strategy. We have the first of our approaches is to use Selenium to reach a respective web page. The second step is to decide whether we want to scan the whole page or we want to scan just a component inside of it. The third one is to decide which accessibility level we want to cover. But we've understood from the beginning that the must-have is double A. And the fourth step is to analyze the page and then get the result. This is an example with a piece of code of a working implementation with Axe. Usually it's done on whole pages, like the POP, the homepage, PDP, etc. On the first row, you can see that we are setting which conformance level we want to check. So we've already talked about them. Then in the analyzer method, we check if there are any errors. And then if we don't have, we will throw that there are no violations found. But if we have, they are stored in a JSON file. In our example, we store them in a JSON file and text files as well. But after that, we use those JSON files to generate the HTML report from them. That is a lot beautiful than the beginning with the JSON. So now you will see an HTML report and how it looks. Oh no, sorry, I've missed one slide. So, and this is again from the same implementation, an example of what should we analyze by steps. We're looking into tag names, CSS selectors, IDs, and names of the elements during the scan. And to finish this approach, now I'm going to show you the HTML report. Here how it looks. It looks really pretty. It's also understandable. It says what is the issue. As you can see, the first one is that certain area rows must be contained by particular parents. So when we open that kind of description, there are more detailed on the next pages of the report, but this is only just a piece of it. So we can see where this error happened. What can we do? We always have proposals from Axe. What can we do? What area rule is not okay, validated, and we have the impact. And the impact in this case for the first 5 is critical. So let's continue. And do you think that we are done? Is it enough, that kind of implementation that checks the whole page with Axe? What do you think? Can we do something more? What about the order of the elements and the keyboard navigations? Because Axe cannot do that. So we can use all of the attributes that Selenium has for accessibility, like get accessible name by Selenium. We expect the result to have a value, which means that it should be already set in the code. If we don't have a value or it's undefined, we will throw an error. We have get area row by Selenium. all elements should have their area row, counting on that we are making additional checks. Is the element checkbox? Is the element radio button, slider, or any other element that should have area row? We need that. And the area list is the last of our elements in the correct order of web elements that we want to validate. With those three, we can reassure that the user can pass through our web page using tab, space, enter, arrows, or any other appropriate buttons, so he can get to where he wants, and he can buy something, obviously. This is a picture that explains how the method from the navigation check is working. First, we are setting the focus on the first element from the collection. Then, from every element in the collection, what we do? We take the active element, then we check that this is the expected element from the collection. Then we get the accessibility name and check that that name is present. Then we do the same thing with the area row. But unfortunately, So this is another example of piece of the code. On the first one, we can set focus on the previous element. On the second, we can press tab from the previous element. And on the third one, we press tab on the current element. With that method, we can assure that the user knows where he is and he can tap through all of the interactive elements. But we're still not done yet. That's not everything that we can check or that we want to check. We have an additional implementation. And here you can see our third implementation that is very similar to the first one, but it goes more into details of what exactly is set for a specific attribute. We call it custom rules. And this is an example of a custom rule. This is a part of a JSON file, and every object consists of selector, which we use to identify an element and then the element that we want to validate. Page category is a set of keywords that identifies on which pages that elements exist. Checks an array of validations that needs to be performed for that element. We have the key, that is the name of the attribute that we want to validate. We have the value of the key attribute. We have the text, which is self-explanatory. We have the action. And in the action, we have three values: full match, substring, and attribute exists, which we perform to use specific validations. On the image that you can see, we have two checks. The first one is checking that the out attribute here has value with the name Clarins. And the second one is checking that the SRC attribute value contains the given path. And this is the way we can ensure that specific story level details can be automated. So after all of those tools, ways, automation, and everything that we gave you, we cannot finish this presentation without our takeaways.
Probably for us, the first, and based on experience actually, the first and most important thing is your education. You need to invest in education of your team and clients in accessibility, why it matters, and how it can be achieved. The next one is probably the automation. Accessibility is a time-taking process, so the more you can automate, the better for you. And finally, last but not least, you can incorporate accessibility as a standard as part of your definitions of done and ready. So you can ensure that whatever is implemented or ready for implementation is written in an accessibility-friendly manner.
And with accessibility, as he said, it's like with everything in life. It will last as long as we take care of things. Thank you for attending. Now, if we have any questions
Thank you.
in the comments,
I'm going to check.
or maybe Diego will.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
We don't have any questions so far. But I just wanted to thank you both for sharing the presentation. I think it was very interesting how you covered like the problems and then the solutions they're using. So I really appreciate you shared enough details, because I've seen a few presentations and they stop at the problems and they don't share much about the solution. So at least to me, this was interesting to see the different tools, because I've mostly seen Axe and I didn't know about the other tools. I haven't spent much time researching, but this was at least useful for me. Until we get a question, I wanted to ask you, I know that there is a law coming to enforce this, but if you had experiences to realize how easy or how hard was to get the team on board to work on these topics in accessibility?
It is hard, to be honest. First of all, what we did is actually there were some simultaneous actions. On one hand, we were doing analysis of the accessibility status of the website. On the other hand, we were educating our people, and here we are not talking only about developers and QAs, also solution architects, business analysts, and also product owners from the quant side, because everything that is ready and that they want to be developed needs to have accessibility in mind. So this is what we did initially. Afterwards, we spent a lot of time, as we have mentioned in the presentation. We were green during that initial accessibility implementation, but we were in a situation where we have fixed some, let's say, common issues that were across multiple pages, like common elements that has been already been fixed in terms of accessibility, and then we have focused on more, focus and particularly harder things in order to be achieved in terms of accessibility. So this was our journey on a high level. What I can give as an advice is that fixing the current state is not all of the work. So fixing the current state of a website, you're not done. So you're just in a way that you're good in terms of accessibility, let's say, but as the website continues to evolve, it needs to have accessibility in mind for all the features that are applied, bug fixes, etc. So it's not a one-time job. It's a mindset, and that needs to be part of the day-to-day life of in the software development life cycle. Let's go that way.
And for us, it's very time-consuming, and we should learn on daily basis the new things, and not only the old, because it's a lot of documentation and a lot of rules. So yeah, we're still not great, but we are learning. We have in our teams at least 4 people that are very good with accessibility, and they have the right information, so they can support the new people that wants to get to know what is accessibility and to test or to develop ones. So it's really a day-to-day work.
I can imagine. One of the things I was wondering, because we haven't gotten questions so far, is how has collaboration improved or changed, um, taking into account this new process or workflow? Because I mean, you're like, for example, executing automated tests, and then there is a report, and like in old-fashioned way, sometimes the tester has to take the report and show it to the developer. It's like there has been a change in this type of interactions, or like is there more collaboration thanks to this new
Well,
process?
we usually, when we talk about accessibility, as I said, we were still green in the beginning. So with developing the story, we were on day-to-day calls, how we can implement a role or how it should behave. So it was a process then, and now it's just the same. The QA analyze all of the reports, then we raise bugs, and if the client prioritize the bugs or the stories, we fix the things. If not, if they can wait for them, that will be the way. But usually this is how we work. But we do this analysis on day-to-day basis, like we analyze our automation results. It's the same with the accessibility one. We have clients that are very strict with that, and we have clients that are still incorporating the level that we should have. So it's a work to be done there.
Yeah, I imagine. I also imagine that people are thinking just about their web or their mobile application, but they forget that they also have like pages with frequent asked questions, and they have to make sure all those work. Like they also need to make sure that if they reach customer support, their customer support has accessibility in it, so communication is flawless. So I can imagine the change that all your customers are um, having to go through in this case.
Yeah, yeah, that's correct. And one more thing probably to mention here, accessibility is a really strange thing to implement, to be honest. Why? We have WCAG as a standard, so we can incorporate it. For example, all of the images can have alt attributes, but in the two axis, for example, or wave, we have mentioned that during our presentation, would say everything is great, you have alt attribute, but is this meaningful attribute? I can give you another example. You have a link which is called the HTML is click here, for example. But what it does, what click here does, because most of us can see the content, and it makes sense. Click here, so you're guided because of the other content during this widget or element or whatever. But if a person who is not able to see the screen hears click here, what happens next? So it's not only applying the standards, but also thinking what people with disabilities would need to have in order for them to be able to better orientate within the page. So there are, I would say, two pillars of applying accessibility.
Yeah,
and the third one, and the most important, is that we should think like them, because we have the tab order, we have the tab index on all of our elements, and this is fine, but they are not navigating like that. They are starting from the headings, which can be activated with the hash on the keyboard. Then they're going to the landmarks. This is the way that they orientate on a web page. And we should provide the order of the tab as well as the order of how the people with this kind of disability will actually use our website. So we should think for both things.
Yeah, no, I remember because some years ago I was working in a media company, and there were some desktop applications that were used by a contact center, and people never used the mouse. They were also only using the keyboard, and when they were taking data, they were using the tab. And if we messed up the indexes of the tab, then they couldn't really take orders or write down customer reports, and their productivity was going down. So this is like very similar to this situation where if somebody who has issues with accessibility and is using the tab, then they will not be able to follow the flow that they need. So that's a very good point. Okay, so I think with that, I just wanted to thank you again for sharing your presentation and sharing all the content, because at least personally, this is a different presentation I've seen from the others. Like, you see actionable things, you see tools, you see tips, and more concrete details. So I really want to thank you for being here and sharing your expertise and your knowledge with the rest of the community. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you for inviting us, and thanks, guys, to all who are listening or who will watch the presentation after that. And if you have any questions, we are available on LinkedIn, so you can always ask us.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. So I'm going to end the live stream for now. Then thank you, everyone, and see you soon. So please, Kathy and Emil, stay online, and we're going to have a chat after the stream ends. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.